Hello, everybody. I'm Philburt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, bringing you practical, timely, and accurate insights so that you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, June 29th, episode 237. Today, we talk about how to level up with generational diversity. It's a multi-generational workforce, and to unlock the potential that these different perspectives can offer, it's going to take actively understanding the diverse skills, experiences, and values of our people. We welcome to the show strategic business consultant Tanya Zion. Tanya will bring insights that she's gained from both research and real-world situations to help you elevate your organization. Now, which generation of viewers is going to be the first to participate in the show? Tune in to find out on This Week at Work.
Welcome back, everybody. And this is our last show before the 4th of July. Bert, I know that's one of your favorite holidays, if not your favorite holiday. I know for sure it is mine. I love summertime. I love our Independence Day celebration and everything that our country does represent. And I love the fact that you don't have to buy anyone any gifts, right? There's no pressure for the 4th of July. You just kind of show up how you are, where you're at, and have a good time.
Phil, I'm sure you'll be out on your boat this weekend. Don't you have a boat?
I do, and I will be out on the boat this weekend. I have a pool as well.
Don't put the boat in the
boat
pool.
and the pool. Now, I didn't tell you, my boat might be a little air raft that you blow up and put in the pool, but I do have that. I am all about summertime and water. I don't know why I live in Missouri and not along the coast. I absolutely love the water.
Hurricanes, Phil. That's why you don't live on the coast.
Hurricanes, that's right. And sharks. Don't forget about those. Yeah.
All
right. Well, we have Tanya Zion back with us by popular demand. Welcome back, Tanya. How are you today?
Thanks, Phil. Doing great. I, too, am looking forward to some time on the water. We have that in common. So it's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah, it should be a great weekend, and we're happy to have Tanya with us. She's coming with us from North Carolina and does an excellent job for us. And you're a fan favorite of our audience, and it's easy to understand why. If you haven't heard Tanya before, I think you'll become a fan of hers by the end of the program. All right, Bert, we got a lot going on the program today. Let's introduce our poll questions. The first question we have for you is, do you have a formal mentorship program with your organization? If so, give us some ideas about that. That's question number one. And I really like this question. Question number two, I am, and what are you? This is something we really don't know about our audience, Bert. Are you a traditionalist, a baby boomer, Gen X or millennial, Gen Zer? Some people say Generation Zion. Tanya, did you know there was a book written as Generation Zion after your name there?
I didn't. That was news to me. So always interesting what I learned on the show.
Yes, well, that's why people tune in. We keep you informed so you can more effectively run your business. That's the purpose of the program. And then the final, let's see. So those are the two questions we wanted to get to before we get to Lawyer on the Clock. Bert, are you ready? There's lots of good things to talk about as we head into the holiday week.
Yeah, but Phil, don't forget about your favorite, the word cloud.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yep, forgot the word cloud. What is your favorite word from your generation? That's the question I was looking for. That's a fun one. Your favorite word from your generation. I think mine is probably awesome. I say awesome all the time. And the other thing about generations, Bert, that I just realized, and you're probably in this boat because I know you're older than I am by far. However, you know, as Tanya was joining the program, I was preparing and I was thinking, this is like my third generational transition that I've gone through now in the workplace. So, you know, I came in as a Gen Xer and I was on the early front of Gen Xers. So we were a big deal hitting the workplace and often thought of as slackers and so on. And then we went through the millennial and now we're going through the Gen Z transition. So my third workplace transition as it relates to generational changes.
Well, you and I are about the same age, Phil, and so I'm right there with you on the generational changes. And looking at those dates on that first question that Nick put up, looks like we're going to have to add the next generation after Gen Z, and I'm not sure what that is. I know my kids all fall in the Gen Zer, but not quite sure what the next one is after that.
And
Yeah,
to answer the
Generation
poll, it is
Alpha.
when you were born, not what you identify as.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Nick. That we're not looking for how you identify. It's just when you were born. Good point.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
But it is Generation Alpha coming up, just so you know
Alpha.
that. That's what our kids, that's what they're coining right now.
Back to A. So, and what is Generation Alpha supposed to be, Tanya?
They're hearkening back to the traditionalist and the early baby boomers. It's kind of how things always cycle around. So that's what we expect to see from them.
Yeah, and it does cycle. I mean, I think when you look at the studies of generations, it does have a cycle. So that's why we have Tanya on the program. Bert, you nor I are alphas, so we're just going to move on. Okay, so let's get to Lawyer on the Clock. Bert, you ready? I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit, and particularly I want to tune into what might be going on with UPS. So, Lawyer, are you ready?
Roll the intro, Nick.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So the first one I want to chat about is a U.S. Supreme Court decision that came out just a few days ago. And this one is actually fairly significant and actually impacts a case that I'm currently working on. A split decision came down from the U.S. Supreme Court that allows Coinbase, one of the cryptocurrency companies, to pause a lawsuit while it appealed a dispute over sending claims to arbitration. And while that's a very narrow case, the facts of this case are narrow, it's definitely going to have broad implication. In the case that I'm working on, we filed a lawsuit, the union filed a lawsuit to compel arbitration to compel arbitration by the company of a dispute. And we opposed the effort by the union, saying that the forum that they were trying to arbitrate in was the incorrect forum. And we lost the case, and then we took it to the Court of Appeals, which then said, no, you cannot stay the case while the appeal is pending. And in this particular case, the Supreme Court says, yes, you can stay the case. So the appellate court, the Seventh Circuit, got it wrong in the case that I'm working on. And so this will impact employers' ability to stay cases while they seek review of a lower court's decision denying a motion to compel arbitration. So a significant case there. Bill, you alluded to this one. The UPS, the Teamsters, are on the verge of going on strike.
Yeah, that is national news for sure.
It is.
And I mean, going to impact anyone listening to the program most definitely as well.
Yeah, it's so of course, UPS, they represent 330,000 truck drivers and other workers. The Teamsters represent that many UPS employees. And the president of the union basically said the negotiators ended talks yesterday, and the union president demanded that UPS exchange its last and final offer by June 30, which by my calendar is tomorrow. The company basically, according to the union, has attempted to move the goalposts at the 11th hour. And the Teamsters, they said that the company is asking for concessions over health, welfare, and pensions. And according to the Teamsters president, a nationwide strike is now imminent. And this would significantly impact, Bill, as you said, virtually everyone, including business. I mean, we're just now starting to see inflation getting lower month over month. We're down to about 4.09%, which is about almost a percentage point lower than the month before. Inflation is still high, but this could really complicate supply chain problems if UPS goes on strike.
Oh yeah, this can create problems that will ripple really around the world when you talk about, taking away the flexibility to deliver supply chain, whether it's business or home goods, it's going to create a problem. I can't think of the last time there has been a large national strike like this. I know that we've averted that with some of the airline pilots and the airline industry recently.
So far.
Yeah, so far. That's right. I guess there's 2 down and maybe a couple more to go there. Is there a time you can remember? I mean, it's got to go back into the 80s, I would guess.
No, not quite that far. You're forgetting a few years ago. It's probably been within the last 5 to 8 years when the dock workers out in California went on strike over the contract terms, and that really did impact the supply chain at that point.
You're
And
right.
you'll remember that there were literally ships sitting out in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. They couldn't pull in, couldn't dock, and couldn't unload goods or get loaded with goods.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, this is the importance of, employers and their work and efforts to, maintain a union-free work environment, to give, unions will have that opportunity when they have leverage, and they have that opportunity right now with leverage and wage inflation, and this is their opportunity to, get what they believe is their fair share.
Well, I've mentioned it before on the program when I was involved in a union organizing campaign a little over a year ago, which we prevailed on. The union business agent flat out told me it's time for the unions to bring employers to their knees. When the economy was really disastrous and literally there were not enough workers out there for any jobs. There's still not enough workers out there for some jobs. Now there's too many workers for some other jobs. But before, when there weren't enough workers for any jobs and the pressure on wages was even higher than it is today, literally the unions had the perspective of bring the employers to their knees.
Yeah. So good reasons to tune into the program. I guess we'll watch what happens with this over the next 24, 48 hours. And hopefully we won't have a disruption to our way of life here as it relates to supply chain, whether it's home goods or business goods. It's going to be an important outcome for us.
Yep, absolutely. 2 more for you really quickly, Phil. First of all, yesterday, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown launched an investigation into 23 companies that appear, according to them, to have committed wage theft. They're specifically looking at Bojangles, 84 Lumber, Arby's, Sonic Drive-In, Spencer's, Weiss Markets, Pizza Hut, Domino's Pizza, Combined Insurance, Jiffy Lube, Popeyes, Burger King, GNC, H&R Block, Dairy Queen, Boston Market, Main Source Bank, Jimmy John's, Little Caesars, Crossmark, Office Max, and KFC. And they're calling on those companies to immediately cease what they call overtime evasion practices and answer questions regarding overtime pay. Really interesting to see senators jumping into this battle, because this is normally something that the Department of Labor or private plaintiff side attorneys would take on. Just really interesting, kind of unprecedented.
What are they saying, Bert? What are they saying, that they're not paying overtime after 40? I'm
not quite sure what the specific allegation is, but it does relate to practices related to overtime evasion. That's what they're saying, that they're avoiding, they're trying to avoid overtime. So really interesting, again, to see senators jumping into this battle. I'll report back in more detail when I find out a little bit more about it. Again, this letter just went out yesterday. And then a lighter one, easier one.
One last thing. As long as I heard you say Dairy Queen, and as long as it doesn't interrupt my Oreo cookie blizzard with extra Oreos, I'm really okay with it. And that's the key thing for me. That's almost a daily treat in the Brandt household.
Phil, you maintain that figure just amazingly well with all that Dairy Queen that you appear to be consuming.
Well, we're only from the chest up here, Bert.
So the last one I'll leave you with is this lighter one. As of June 27th, again, by my calendar 2 days ago, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is in effect. Actually, I think that's the headline's wrong. I think it goes into effect at the end of this month. Maybe it was a couple days ago. Regardless, the PWFA, we've talked about it on the program. It requires covered employers to provide employees with reasonable accommodations related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. It was a law that was signed into law by President Biden at the end of last year, and again, goes into effect either tomorrow, today, yesterday, the day before, somewhere in there. But the important piece, the reason why I'm sharing this with everyone right now is that the EEOC, our friends over at the EEOC, updated just on the 27th, their Know Your Rights Workplace Discrimination is Illegal poster to include the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And so everybody who's got their posters, everybody needs to be aware that those posters need to be updated. The EEOC released
That is not a problem for AIM members. We got them covered. They get their posters as long as they've signed up for their poster renewal program. They're already in the mail, Bert. Not a problem.
Perfect. So the EEOC had released an updated poster in October of 2022, and so this one that's not even obviously a year old, and it's already time to update this. So again, it sounds like Phil's already got your posters in the mail. I know he personally is sealing those envelopes and sealing those tubes, and you will get those momentarily.
Yep. Hey, Bert, before we get off of Lawyer on the Clock, I see our friend Dave is back on the chat box with us here, but at this time, he's not making fun of you or I. He's asking a serious question. He's asking, could the UPS strike fall into a category that would be ordered back to work by the president, like the railroads? I would just have to guess there's probably no way Biden would do that.
Yeah, I don't think he would do it, number one. But number two, I think, Dave, I don't believe that the president has the authority to order a private company back to business. Well, there you go. Back to or the employees working for a private company back to business. The railroads, even though they are private companies, they are in highly regulated national transportation industry. And I know UPS is also in a transportation industry, but I think there's a big difference between the railroads that are covered by the Railway Labor Act. Airlines are also covered by the Railway Labor Act, and UPS is not. That is covered by the National Labor Relations Act. And I don't believe, again, that the president has the authority to do that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see the administration try to jump in and help mediate a dispute and try to have a little bit of a cooling off period and see their administration try to get involved from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's good. Good insight there. I hope that helps you out there, Dave. Great question. All right. Thank you for that, Bert. Lawyer on the Clock, as always. We appreciate that. That's why you tune in. And now let's get on to Philburt's Forum. We're going to kick off our section with Tanya on generations in the workplace with a real quick video that Nick pulled down for us. Nick, go ahead and cue your video for Philburt's Forum.
You've just entered Philburt's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
Sorry I'm late. I was hanging out with some homies.
Say less. Vibe check?
Pop off.
I saw your Finsta.
Why are you being sus?
You're the one being sus.
I was just trying to make some friends.
Franz? No cap?
On God.
I heard about your body count.
Broski, that was the past.
Why are you being cringe?
I'm not cringe. You're cringe. You're being cringe.
You trying to catch these hands?
Nar.
Shakes my damn head.
Now you're being chuggy as
What's chuggy?
Okay, Boomer. I thought we were busting, boo.
I'm unsubscribing to this trauma.
Trauma?
Trauma.
Trauma?
Our whole relationship is trauma. Period.
Big yikes. That hits different.
I want to try ethical non-monogamy.
Is that a supplement?
Nar.
Slay.
Slay? I can't have you living rent-free in my head no more.
Sheesh.
Her.
So when does this start?
ASAP Rocky.
Can I at least catch one last sneaky link? Oh.
I'm gonna need you to take several seats.
Bet.
Wheels up, King.
Deuces, Queen.
All right. Tanya, I don't know if you're living rent-free in my head or what, but so there's something going on there that I don't understand one thing they said.
I was just going to say, what the heck did I just watch?
I don't know, but go ahead, Tanya.
We all are Gen X, so believe it or not, in that span, we all fall into that. But I actually fall in the Oregon Trail generation. So if there's anybody in the audience that remembers that game, technically I'm on the cusp. So I did feel like I needed some foreign subtitles there. And I also think that it's really an extreme example of what we have. But I was just on site at one of our members on Tuesday, and this concept came up. They said, I have these Gen Z workers and they're saying things and I have no idea what they're saying. And what was really cool to me is a Gen Xer in the room said, oh man, just come talk to me. I'm raising my kids that are talking that way. So I can probably be your translator. And I thought, what a cool way of kind of what we're talking about, to be able to meet people where they are and actually look for resources within our own companies to help solve some of this. So it was a really great meeting on Tuesday, and that video, again, extreme. And we want to be careful not to get too far down the stereotypes of the different generations, because that can actually work against us. But yeah, kind of crazy.
I'm still trying to figure out what like LOL means after a text and things like that. I'm way behind when it comes to understanding that language there. Although I will do a flashback. I did get Pig Latin when I was younger. I don't know if you all remember that, but that was something that we did for sure.
Remember it, but never got it, never participated.
Yeah.
Oh, you and my mom would get along. She absolutely hated Pig Latin. We'd all talk it and she'd be like, stop it right now. Now my kids speak Spanish. They're both taking Spanish in high school. And so that's what they're able to do to me. So, hey, it's just, we have to meet people where they are. Things change, right?
So Tanya, that's great. We have to meet them where they are. And pre-program, we were talking about, cultivating a curiosity of, why we function differently in the workplace. And we're having some pre-show conversation. I'd like to bring that into our listening audience here. Talk to me a little bit about what you were explaining as it relates to the different ways in which we were raised, particularly Gen Z. And now that they're in the workplace, the expectations and differences that we have to deal with that are real.
Yeah, I think this impacts so many different areas. Like we were talking about posters, right? And when I'm a Gen Zer coming into the workplace, what's on my poster when I walk in is very different than an employee in 1970 when OSHA was just coming online, right? So we walk into the workplace with a different baseline expectation of what we expect our employers to provide. And so that's just one element of it. And we think about the impact of labor law, but really on a pragmatic thing that I think a lot of listeners who have had children in the education system can relate to. Our Gen Zers, books started being taken away from school, and very quickly those were replaced with tablets. And I'm not even talking during COVID when we sent everybody home to do school, but actually in the classroom, there are iPads out in kindergarten classes. And that traditional model of education where the teacher's in front of the room and you do math at 10:05 and you do English at 10:45 has kind of gone by the wayside in a lot of classrooms, because there's overcrowding, there's classroom management, there are these things that we've had to adapt to. And so I know when my kids were second graders, they had stations, right? And you'd bring a parent volunteer in and there'd be 6 stations around the room. The teacher would be working with the reading groups and the kids would go around to independent study to check the other things. I mentioned this in a workshop that I did, and somebody raised their hand and said, oh, they don't even do that anymore. Now they just have an iPad that walks them through the different modules that they need. Things jump on the screen and congratulate them and give them their score. Well, okay, we take a Gen Zer who perhaps they haven't had a secondary education. They walk from school into the workforce. No wonder they're a little bit lost. Yeah. And none of this is to say that we can't promote culture and we can't assimilate our new workers into our workforce. And I think Julie has an awesome point on chat about mentorship and how we can do that. But if we can understand the experience and what that's been and how it's differed perhaps from our experience, then we're better equipped to be able to demonstrate empathy and think about how we onboard employees and really the breadth and the scope of what we need to be considering when we do.
It's interesting because I get a chance to visit a lot of employers, and that often involves a tour of their workplace, whether it's, an office environment or manufacturing. But I see this consistently in manufacturing environments, warehousing environments, and it's it's notices, it's here's your manual on how to operate, here's your quality control manual. And if you think about what you just said, if I've never been handed a big thick book and had to dig into it and read and study out of a book, when you hand me a manual, that would be as foreign to a person as it was, back in the late 80s or 90s when we were teaching people like how to use a mouse. There was training on how to use a mouse because it was so foreign to some people. And I would assume that coming into the workplace, not having had, the experience of using the Dewey Decimal System and all the other things that you had to learn in a paper form, that, that wouldn't be the most effective way to bring someone up to speed quickly in that sense.
No, absolutely. It's a great point. And I also think it goes beyond that, especially when we're talking about manufacturing or people on the shop floor. Even go back 20 years ago, if people were migrating towards the trades, there was this assumption that they had picked some of that up through life experience, right? Helping out at home, fixing a garbage disposal or something like that. Well, what we have to remember about a lot of Gen Z is we're talking about dual income households where their parents' generation was exchanging time for money, right? And so they weren't fixing the garbage disposal. They were hiring someone to come in and fix the garbage disposal. And the plumber isn't going to bring Junior or their daughter along to say, hey, watch me while I fix this, right?
Right.
And so the frustration that a lot of our frontline managers are having, that they're saying they don't know how to operate a circular saw, they've never turned a wrench, it's different. And we as a culture decided to place less emphasis on the trades. We went into schools and told everyone a post-secondary education was the way to go. And that's what we prepared the workforce for. But we know now that was a big mistake. And so I think employers are really absorbing the blunt of that impact and having to figure out, again, how do we take people that may not have skills that we're accustomed to and create an environment that we can make them successful? And there's work to be done.
Well, and I want to mention one thing, though, that adds a little bit to that, Tanya, that doesn't get enough attention. About 10, 12 years ago, during one of the prior presidential administrations, that administration made it a priority to go after the for-profit trade schools. And while those for-profit trade schools certainly had some problems in as much as they were loading up people with debt, federal loans that those people couldn't necessarily pay off. And sometimes the associate's degrees that some of those folks were getting were not worth the paper they were written on. Definitely serious problems. But basically, the administration put those trade schools out of business. And so that was a conscious decision to go after those for-profit trade schools. And I think we're really seeing the effects of that these days, that we don't have enough people out there in these skilled trades. They're not able to go to school necessarily to learn the skilled trades.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, Bert, you're exactly right. I have a very dear friend of mine who is an instructor at a trade school, is the best way for me to say it. And the things that he struggles with is the most simple, basic concepts of like reading a ruler, how to take a measurement, and he's got 21-year-old young men and women counting, 1, 2, 3, okay, 3 out of 8, 3, 8, and having to, how to learn how to use tools that often we learned when we were, younger, watching our parents or an uncle or a grandfather, and you kind of learn these things at a very young age, where this might be the first time they're using those to try and get, to acquire the skills they're going to need to go work in a trade.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if I want to know if a couch fits in my living room, I can be on Amazon and hit a button and I take a picture of my living room and it says, yes, the couch will fit. We have to balance this idea of technology, and we've been focusing a lot on trades and that sector of the workforce, but this applies in office too. The other things I'm hearing from members is I walk by people's desks, they have their phones propped up on their computer, they have their headphones in, they're working on something on work, and they're watching a movie or listen to music. And the thing we need to know about these Gen Zers is they were digital natives. They've never known life without that. And so where we look at even the millennials, they were 2 screens, right? They work on 2 screens and they're very comfortable with that. They're saying now that Gen Zs can work on, 4 or 5 screens at a time and are competent in doing so. Now, I think the jury's still out on some of that, but even that concept to some of us is completely foreign, that we would be able to do that. And so I do want to be clear that these differences do span across all roles and all jobs, but it comes back to this idea that the workforce, and we don't want to overgeneralize, but the more that we can understand the experience they had prior to landing at our doorsteps, then we can better equip them for success. And that's where we get into expectation settings. It comes back to these basic things that every time I'm on, I talk about. What's your culture? What's your mission? What's your values? How do I know I'm successful in your organization? And what I'm just encouraging managers to do is to look at that a little bit more globally. From a whole person standpoint, what do they need to know to be successful? And some of it might sound ridiculous. Somebody the other day said, yeah, I had to let somebody go because he didn't know you couldn't sleep on the job. Well, he's probably sleeping through class. And so, as ridiculous as that sounds, those are some of the things that maybe we just haven't instilled that work ethic in this generation in the way we have in generations prior.
Yeah, no, I have had employees say, well, no one told me I couldn't sleep, even though it was in the handbook, but no one told them. And they're like, my job was just to sit and monitor. The alarm goes off. I hear the alarm, right? I don't have to look at a dial. The alarm tells me that there's a problem. So I would hear the alarm and I would wake up. And I mean, the young person made a really good point, although we still addressed it. All right, before we close out, I want to do one fun thing. Bert or Nick, can you pull up the word cloud? Let's just take a quick look at that. We'll post the rest of these on my LinkedIn page. Some fun things here. Whatever. All right, that's a good one. We all like that one. Cool, that one, and groovy. I guess we got some baby boomers. Would that be fall into the baby boomer time frame? MTV is a good generational. Would that be Gen X? Bert, any of these that you like? Are you tripping there, Bert? Or are you still with us?
Good, cool, and awesome. Or I still use regularly. Totes. I'm going to have to look up that one on Urban Dictionary.
I don't know that one. We have to look that one up.
It's totally, completely. I'm 100% on your side. I totes agree. Yeah.
Got it.
There you go.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, and one other thing, I don't know if Nick has it ready, but I thought this was interesting. Maybe you all think it's interesting. I looked at the recruiting posters for the Army over the span of several generations, and I thought it was somewhat telling, right? We started way back with the traditionalists where we had Uncle Sam saying, we want you for the U.S. Army. And I don't know if anybody knows, but 2 years ago, the recruitment posters for the U.S. Army was literally choose your own avatar. And the way that they were recruiting people and talking about them coming into the Army was this idea that you can be a thunder maker, a force multiplier, all of these different things. And so I think it's pretty interesting. You've got one of, the biggest marketing engines probably that we can point to in the nation, and you can see how we've evolved in our thinking to recruit. And so interestingly enough, they've abandoned this campaign and they're actually going back to some previous ones. But I thought it was an interesting take on how we've maybe evolved as society.
Yeah, the last one I saw on military recruiting was they were promoting flexibility. And I thought, how can the military promote flexibility? But I guess that's what they need to do to recruit. All right, with that, we are bringing the program to a close before our 4th of July holiday break. I hope everyone has a great, safe, happy holiday. We will be on the program back here on July 6th, I guess Thursday following the holiday. We'll see you then. We'll give you an update on what's going on with UPS, but you'll probably already know that by then. Until then, we'll see you then next Thursday at 7:30. Bye-bye.
Happy 4th.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.